Alright, next up is Dinner for Schmucks, a highly anticipated comedy directed by Jay Roach, who has has vast experience in many comedies, and of course you really can't go too wrong with the two men at the center of this film, Steve Carell and Paul Rudd. Now, I've wanted to see these two together ever since the 2005 box office smash, the 4-year-old version. Not only was it a box office smash, it was a brilliant comedy that really just had all the elements that make a comedy as smart as it did way back in the 80s. Now, Paul Rudd kind of reminds me a bit of Steve Martin in a way, where he looks like, that stuffy, uptight businessman, but really he can crack a joke with the best of them. It's just very subtle, dry humor, but when he says it, you're laughing hysterically. Steve Carell, on the other hand, is more of I'd say a high-strung Bill Murray, or even as far as Martin Short, or even Eugene Levy. Now, here's the thing, I make that comparison because I was watching Martin Short in a film called Get Over It a couple weeks ago, and I could picture Steve Carell playing that condescending, sarcastic kind of drama teacher kind of role. I could see him being outrageous in that way. But he's still a starring actor, and I hope he still goes far. As these two, once again, are very good together. They don't deliver as much as the 4-year-old virgin did, but they do deliver nonetheless. Now, this film sounds very cruel on the surface. The concept is simple. In order to get a promotion, a guy named Tim, played by Paul Rudd, has to is so desperate for his promotion. He's, it's that typical cliche thing. He's been held down for years, but when there's so many people up for this promotion, they have to bring the biggest, quote, schmuck to dinner. A dinner for a contest to see who could win. This is another one of those contests of millionaires playing games with people. You remember, like in the movie like Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd back in the 1980s, or even more recent like Rat Race with John Cleese, just using these puppets to play this game and make bets and whatnot. But here, this is done in a more smart fashion, where not only does it entail zany comedy, it entails a bondship between two unlikely people that they're probably not going to be the bestest friends in the world by the end of the film, but at least the characters will have an understanding of each other. Now, of course, Tim accidentally runs over a guy named Barry, played by Steve Carell. Now, of course, he may have struck gold by finding someone who he doesn't understand anything. He's just completely and utterly out there. This is the kind of guy that you go out of your way to avoid at all costs. He may be out there, but at the same time, he's still a person. Now, again, he kind of strikes things up to get this guy to this dinner, and what happens is not only do we get the relationship between these two, which is zany in itself, but Carell does it in a way that doesn't sound stupid. Yes, what he's saying is stupid, but yet the way it's being done is very smart, and that is the art that Steve Carell and Paul Rudd have really perfected here, and I like it how they come together and don't drown out each other with being complete polar 180 opposites of each other. Now, I'll admit that the oddball appeal could have been easily hit or miss in this film, but yet when you have two experienced actors like this who have both been in their careers, at least lately, very smart in choosing their roles, especially Carell. Paul Rudd did have a very, very bad period for a while there, but at the same time, though, I think that working on the movies that they've worked on, with Carell being in stuff like 40-Year-Old Virgin and Date Night, and Rudd being also in that movie as well as Knocked Up, he really understands the appeal of what makes a comedy perfect and how it should be. And in my opinion, Rudd could work with just about any comedic actor. We saw it with last year with Jason Segel in the wonderfully funny I Love You Man, and now he does it here again with Carell, and of course he did it with Seth Rogen in Knocked Up. Now, and even in a small part in Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Now, the thing I like about this too is that the way the movie develops on end is it's just very interesting. There's actually even some things you can't see coming. But the best part is when you meet some of the other schmucks. One played by Zach Galifianakis, of course, best known from The Hangover, of course, his unforgettable performance in that film, really adds a lot here. Him and Carell together in their scenes are just fantastic. It's just a laugh a minute. If you're fans of either of these two, you will enjoy it, I guarantee. Some, however, might be disappointed, only because Jay Roach's approaches to comedy have included the Meet the Parents films, but yet here, he doesn't do that overly, he does that same awkward humor. I think some people are just very uncomfortable with awkward humor. Some of the scenes in the Meet the Parents films were so awkward that you're ducking your head like this, and there are moments in this film too, however, they don't drown out the whole concept of what's going on. And some people may think that's what happened in Meet the Parents. I really don't. I think those scenes were necessary when they happened, and I think it in this film too. Again, I don't even think this is quite as good as Meet the Parents, but at the same time, it's really hard to go wrong with two great comedic actors like this. I give Dinner for Schmucks 4 stars out of 5.